Over 2 weeks out of finishing the show, and still, every single time I think of that one theme at the end of episode 6, I get so sad. Da, dun, dun, da, dun, dun. It really is an amazing testimony to the power of the music, and we'll talk more about that later. But just that single theme and how sad it is so it's just so emulative of how cruel the entire situation is. That these soldiers who are carrying out this sick game just could not care less about the horrifying fates of all these contestants, and the fact that it is a game to them, literally, just makes it all the more sad. It's just incredible, the contrast between the humanity of the victims and the complete callousness of the villains. That's a bit of a side tangent, but I had to start it off like that because that to me is one of the most powerful parts of the show. In case you didn't read the title, yes, this is going to be spoiler filled. I'm not going to cover every single spoiler, but I'm definitely going to cover the major ones. So if you haven't seen Squid Game yet and you don't want it spoiled, click off right now. There's your warning. I'm really glad that Korean media is starting to get the attention it deserves, specifically Korean movies and Korean TV shows. Not that they didn't have the attention that it deserved a few years ago, but I just feel like now with Korean media hitting the mainstream with a streaming service and with a TV show, which is kind of like the main thing these days due to the pandemic, Korean media is starting to get more and more attention exponentially and a lot faster than it would have in years past. In years past, I think one of the main things was like Old Boy, the 2003 version, not the 2013 version. Don't ever watch that. Um, I Saw the Devil, Parasites, of course. They're just all kinds of movies from Korean cinema and Korean TV that should be more in the mainstream, I think. Koreans are they're amazing at making TV and they're amazing at making movies. They do have a very existential outlook on life, I feel. I mean, I haven't seen everything that Korean media has to offer, but I feel like they're very bleak despite their excellence in the craft. And I guess that's to be expected. I mean, if I just say the words North Korea, we all know what we're talking about. And when you have such a distinct line between classes, there's going to be a lot more disharmony and unhappiness, I think, and that kind of influences the art. But in any case, I'm glad that Squid Game has kind of hit the main vein of American culture, and now we're all talking about it, including some of my sixth graders. The brilliance of this show is that it depicts itself as kind of a classic battle royale-ish, which, by the way, is another great piece of Korean cinema. But there's so much more to it than that. At its core, it's about the dynamics of class discrimination, which I've mentioned, but it's also about that age-old question of putting your morals to the ultimate test. What would you do if it was your life versus someone else's? And how does money affect us? And that's not an issue that should be swept aside so easily, because I feel like the how money affects us might kind of sound cliche, but it is a very powerful theme. There's a reason why it's been around so long and why it works so well. There's a quote by the great actor Bryan Cranston that I really like, who said that when he was talking about his character in Breaking Bad, and the question posed to him was, do you think that Walter White was always evil and he just needed the right circumstances to transform him into someone evil, or do you think that he was a good man turned wrong? I personally believe that Walter White was always evil, but Bryan Cranston believes that he was actually a good guy. It's just that certain circumstances caused him to take a left turn. And the illustration that he used was that imagine someone gave you like a dead tarantula and said, eat this. Well, you would say, of course not. I'm not going to do that. Unless you're, a bit of a weirdo. No offense to people who like eating tarantulas. Anyway. But imagine someone handed you a dead tarantula and said, I will pay you $1 million. And they had cash in their hand. I'll pay you $1 million right now if you eat this tarantula. What would you do then? You would probably start to at least consider it. Like, oh, well, $1 million, I mean, I guess tarantulas aren't that bad. You see what I'm saying? So it's just Squid Game is a very interesting study into how millions and millions, and I guess in this case, billions of dollars could affect the way that we act. Probably the best part of this show is the performance from our lead actor, Lee Jung-jae. I'm so sorry if I'm butchering that terribly, but man, what a demanding role for an amazing actor. I mean, basically any kind of emotion that a human being can experience, this guy goes through. He goes through ecstasy, he goes through despair, He goes through incredible anger. He goes through, I mean, just any emotion that you can think of on the spectrum of human emotions, he probably experiences during this show. I especially like one of the scenes where he's arguing with the college student character, and the college student has told him that, like, you have you have like a pea brain, and you're a mess up. Like, why do you think you're here? And then like the Lee Jung Jae, who plays Guhin. No, that's not it. I'm not even gonna try to remember the characters' names during this review because yeah, it's just a little too difficult. Anyway, the expression that the main protagonist has uh, when he is retaliating against the college student for these accusations is just really good acting. Like the camera's right up there in front of his face, and he's saying like, "Oh, well, you're such a hot shot, and you're in here too, huh? Well, so you hypocrite, like you don't say those things about me." And some people might not have even noticed, but to me, it was a really powerful moment of exquisite acting. Another one of Squid Game's main strengths, and one of the strengths that I almost never talk about in any TV or show or any TV show or in any movie that I watch, is the set design. I mean, the set design is pretty malicious and it's really, really creepy, but I think that's kind of the point. I mean, regardless of what the situation is, if you were to walk into a building and there was just a giant setup for like a children's park, or if there was any kind of setup for like children's games, it just gives it this like ominous, creepy feeling. I mean, obviously, if you're a child, then it's a wonderful feeling. Like, oh, look at this park, like 10 times the amount of space I really have. But if you actually walk in to a playground and there are these creepy guards with machine guns standing there, and you know that a bunch of you are about to die, it can be pretty terrifying. But notwithstanding that, just the colors and the camera angles that they use to kind of emphasize the set design and to really bring it out, to kind of give it some punch, is really amazing. And I'm very impressed with how much time they took to do all that. In episode 6, all of that set was real, including the paintings of the sun setting. So it must have taken a lot of work, and they deserve the props. No pun intended. And of course, the music, like how I start off with this review. It was really outstanding, and I loved the theme for whenever the Pink Soldiers came in. I think the theme is actually called Pink Soldiers. And I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, but if you listen to the vocalizations, after a while, it almost sounds like they're saying Squid Game. Squid Game, Squid Game, Squid Game. Something like that. But if you just listen really closely, like, how if you listen to something over and over and over and over again ad infinitum, your brain can almost start to like insert its own meaning into it. It's really incredible. I'm sure there's some kind of phenomenon attached to it, some kind of official scientific word. But when I listen to it over and over again, I'm like, after a while, it's starting to sound like they're saying Squid Game. I hope that was on purpose, because if it was, that's pretty cool. And as a trumpet player, I'm not entirely sure how I felt about them including the Haydn Trumpet Concerto, which is the most famous trumpet piece of all time. I mean, since millions of people are watching the show, if it inspires people to get into trumpet, I'm all for it. Or if it inspires people to get into classical music, I'm all for it. It's just probably a weird association to make. I can't imagine like asking some high schooler like, "Oh, so how'd you get into the trumpet?" Well, when I was in 5th grade, I was watching the show called Squid Game. I mean, hey, if more people are playing the trumpet because of it, that's good in my book. The show, of course, like any show or any movie for that matter, is not without its flaws. Let's get into the most obvious flaws, the VIPs. Now, everyone is going on about how atrocious their acting is, and I think it is bad if you're looking at it from the basis of how they should be acting in a major TV show with grade A actors. I honestly believe that part of it was the dialogue that they had. The dialogue is terrible. Okay, there's no excuse for that. Whoever was in charge of giving the dialogue to the VIPs, you could have done better. Okay, I'm just saying. But as far as their acting is concerned, I honestly think that it kind of works. Like, if you are so outrageously rich that the way that you fill your time in entertainment is to watch other people kill themselves, then you have no need to carry yourself with dignity. You have no need to grow up. You have no need to dig deep within yourself to overcome challenges, to be a human. And that's what these VIPs are. They're inhuman. So the fact that they're acting like overgrown man children and kind of being like, "Oh, come on, don't hang yourself. I was betting on you." Like it kind of makes sense to me the way that they would act that way. Now, this could just be me being ignorant because I know absolutely nothing about what it takes to be a great actor. So, there's that. But I honestly think that the fact that they were kind of acting, the fact that they were overacting actually works to the show's advantage. They are overgrown man children. They have no soul. They don't care about anything except themselves. So I think that it worked. But I can totally understand why most people think it didn't. And also, the show's second biggest flaw, and I touched upon this in my review of episode 1, is the amount of expositional dialogue. Now, depending on who you are, expositional dialogue can work, and depending on the context and the way you do it, expositional dialogue works very well. Just watch any Scorsese movie. However, I find it so annoying whenever characters establish some kind of relationship between them by digging up the past. No one talks this way, no one acts this way. And besides which, if you want to show tension between two characters, show them in a tense situation. Or if you want to show that two characters are in love with each other, or that they have some kind of past in their friendship that has, given them a special bond, then show it. And I feel like Revenge of the Sith and Star Wars got so close to nailing it right with Anakin and Obi-Wan, which is kind of hilarious to say because they had 2 movies up to that point to show them bonding together. But at the end of the giant battle, episode 3, when Obi-Wan is trying to spur Anakin on to go, enjoy the spoils of war, as it were, and Anakin keeps volleying the praise back to Obi-Wan. It's just kind of cringy because, like, I guess people can talk like that if they're extremely close, which theoretically Obi-Wan and Anakin are, but people just don't talk that way. I've never been witness to a conversation where, someone is trying to establish, or someone, brings up the past and is like, "You remember when we were 9? Like, I can't believe you did that to me. This is why I don't like you." Like, I don't know. Perhaps perhaps people do talk that way out in the real life, but to me, it just kind of comes across as lazy. They don't do it nearly as much as the episodes progress, but in episodes 1 and 2, and maybe even 3, I kind of forget, it is especially present. And if they do go for a season 2, I hope that is completely cut out. I do like the twist ending, with the old man kind of being behind the whole thing. Although I do feel like it significantly reduces the drama of episode 6, which by far is the most heavy hitting of the entire series. Again, going back to that theme, it's amazing like how music can be so simple but so powerful. And that theme is so simple. It's just like these descending intervallic notes, but just like, ugh. I still remember like sitting in front of the TV and listening to that theme and just being like, "Oh my gosh, my heart, it's bleeding." But once you know that it was the old man the entire time, that he is in fact the personification of true evil, it doesn't feel the same way, when you see him being shot off screen. I suppose that the power, the characteristic of the story that still is powerful is that we are still conflicted about our main hero going against his morals and tricking a man who he thinks is senile. So there's that. But I don't know. It just it just takes a little bit of drama out of episode 6. It still works though. I'd like to know the character that you guys are rooting for right off the bat. I personally was rooting for the pickpocket. I kind of liked her very stoic demeanor, doesn't have time for any of these other fools, and is just trying to survive. And especially when you learn that she is trying to get back to her younger brother, then you are really rooting for her. But I guess we all, as an audience, should have ultimately known that the main protagonist was going to win. I mean, how could he not? Like, we had already sunk so much time and investment and emotional investment into him that if he were to lose, it would almost feel kind of cheap, unless they wrote it so brilliantly that it somehow kind of flipped on itself and we came to care for some other character as much as him. But I was mostly rooting for the pickpocket, and I think the writers intended it that way, seeing as how she was in the top 3. I didn't exactly expect the college student to be the second to last man standing, but it makes sense in retrospect. And am I the only one who, along as the show progressed, started to root for the thug? I know that maybe that kind of paints me as a bit of a sociopath, but I don't know. There's just something about his demeanor that kind of like devil may care, and I'm so above this horrifying situation that I can't even be bothered by everything. I don't know. Like he came across as a anti-hero, which is kind of in fashion. We all love anti-heroes. I know he was kind of psychotic and heartless, which we don't want our anti-heroes to be. But there's just something about him that was kind of sickeningly charming. And I'm going to stop there because I don't want anyone to jump to conclusions about the kind of characters that I like. The ending of the show is clearly indicative of a second season. I'm not against it. I mean, I certainly will watch it if it does come out, but I'm just trying to wonder what exactly would they do if there was a second season? Like, they're not going to have any more games. I mean, I suppose they could, but if they were to have more games, then there wouldn't really be any more mystery involved because we've seen all the games, and also the creator of the games is dead. So, like, who's going to take over? Is the front man going to take over? I guess that'd be kind of cool, but it would certainly not be as interesting as some old man creating a series of games because he's bored. Again, the personification of true evil. If it's our main protagonist's idea to go and take them down, to completely eliminate the games, then that could be kind of interesting. But the meat, the heart of the show, is putting yourself in the place of these characters during the games and wondering what would you do. I don't think any of us would survive, but it's interesting to ask ourselves, what would we do? If we were in the game of marbles and we decided to, we heard the directions beforehand. Oh, we got to pair up with somebody. Well, I'm going to pair up with someone I like. I'm going to pair up with my sister. And then they say, like, by the way, one of you is going to die. What would you do? Would you take the fall, or would you let a family member die? And I know enough about myself to know when I need to look away. I know my limits, okay? I used to think when I was younger that as I grew older, there was nothing anybody could put in front of the screen that I couldn't handle. That is not true, okay? And I would recommend that you also know your limits. You should also know when you should look away. And when I found out the rules about the marble game and I saw the husband and the wife pitted against each other, I was like, if you show that on screen, I'm not watching. I can't take that. Even though they were just strangers, the episode was so brilliantly written that I was thinking, I can't watch like a husband and a wife, decide who's going to die. Fortunately, they didn't show the actual death. I mean, they showed the husband, hanging himself, of course, which is horrifying enough for me. But yeah, if they had showed that, I'd been like, nope, nope. Definitely check out Squid Game if you haven't already. And check it out because, you should be watching more Korean cinema. You should be watching more Korean media. And don't just watch it because everyone's doing it. Don't watch it for the memes. Don't watch it just to be caught up in our culture. Watch it because we as an audience should take more international media in. There's so much entertainment out there that the world has to offer. There's such a bigger world of masterpieces beyond American cinema, beyond American TV shows that I think we all need to be exposed to. And Korean cinema is a great place to start. And even if you've never watched any kind of Korean media, I would highly, highly recommend you start with Squid Game. And I'm giving this TV show, so far, a 9 out of 10. So what do you guys think of Squid Game? Whatever your thoughts are about it, let me know down in the comments below. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. I truly appreciate it, and I'll see you on the next cinematic adventure.